Hey there guys, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. Now, before I go any further with this video, and I know this is the internet, I understand how reactionary things like this can be. I want to make a few things perfectly clear before I go any further with this video. Because what I basically want to say is, look, before you make any assumptions, particularly if you're new to the channel, if you don't know who I am, before you make any assumptions about me or about my content or about why I'm doing this or about the intentions behind it, just please listen to the whole video. Because I know that in instances like this, people tend to listen to parts of the video until it gets to a point where you say something that's polarizing or somebody disagrees, and then all of a sudden it becomes a different situation. Like people start to get the wrong idea of the situation. So I wanted to just make a disclaimer there. If you are going to say something and leave me a comment, I'd appreciate you listen to the whole video first and just at least hear me out, hear what I have to say. So I wanted to talk about Jordan Peterson. Now, Jordan Peterson's a really interesting one to me. He's somebody who I've been a big fan of for quite a long time. I've listened to him for a couple of years now, and I've never really spoken about him before. He's somebody who I've always just kind of had in the back of my mind in regards to when I'm scrolling through YouTube. I'll occasionally sit and listen to one of his videos while I'm doing something, and I find him very interesting to listen to. And he's a guy who I have a lot of admiration for. I have a lot of respect for the guy. At the same time, there are a few things I want to point out about him, and it's an interesting thing to talk about. So let's get into it. So obviously, I'm assuming that pretty much everybody, at least mostly everybody listening to this video, knows of Jordan Peterson, and knows who he is and what he's all about and whatnot. So I don't really need to give you an introduction and tell you guys who this guy is and what his credentials are. I'm sure you guys already know. And I was introduced to Jordan Peterson, funnily enough, through the BBC a few years ago. I believe it was, if I remember rightly, I believe it was on that show Hard Talk. And he's been back on the BBC a couple of times since. And I just remember him absolutely tearing apart this BBC journalist on that show. And that was what first sort of got me interested in him. However, I'm always very skeptical of public figures. I'm always very skeptical of people who are in that sort of area, that sort of landscape where they're allowed on TV and they're allowed to express their opinions and they're allowed to debate and stuff like that, and they have a big following on social media, because that's really where Jordan Peterson gained most of his fame and attention, was on social media, particularly on YouTube and Twitter. But I digress. Let's get into it. So Jordan Peterson, what I've always found fascinating about him and what I've always found very interesting is how the things that he talks about and the views and opinions that he has, like when he talks about postmodernism and when he talks about modern feminism, and when he talks about, particularly when he talks about psychology and the psychology of people in society as a whole, and the differences between men and women and aspects of the brain and stuff like that, when he talks about this stuff, what's really fascinating to me is that the vast majority of what he says and the vast majority of the views that he has are pretty much just common sense, or they really should be common sense. But as we all know, in this day and age, in this postmodernist era, the vast majority of people lack common sense, and common sense is no longer really common. Like the things that Jordan Peterson talks about, and he's very articulate, very well educated man. Most of the views and opinions that he has and the things that he talks about and the things that make him so polarizing and so quote unquote controversial are really things that we should all know. If you have any life experience whatsoever, if you've ever had a job, if you've ever been in a relationship, if you've ever worked in the corporate world, or if you've ever been, even if you've ever been to college or you've ever been to school, you should really know all of the things that he teaches. You should really understand, like this should really be common knowledge. And it's fascinating to me and it's hilarious to me how when you listen to him debate with some journalist, like you say he's on TV, like if he's on Channel 4 or if he's on the BBC or if he's on one of these other networks or when he's on one of these YouTube channels or whatever, and he's debating with somebody, and when he comes out with something like there are differences between men and women, and you see the reactions. People are like, "What?" And like He'll say that there are biological differences between men and between women and the way that men and women think. What? And people act like total. They're sitting in front of him and they're acting like total spastics. They're sitting in front of him and they're acting like what he's saying is not 100% factual. Right? They're acting like him saying things like feminism is dangerous for women and dangerous for society, and postmodernism, and when he talks about the problems with postmodernism, and when he talks about just basic biological facts and psychological facts, and people sit there like what he's saying is not 100% objective fact. That's what fascinates me about him, and how he sort of is so articulate that he rose to prominence by simply just speaking the truth and doing it in an articulate and entertaining way. It's fascinating to me. Now, so I have, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the guy. I have a lot of admiration for the guy. I don't put him on a pedestal. Like, I'm not seeing him as like some intellectual guru who is the be all and end all. Nobody is, okay? Everybody is fallible. Okay, every single human being is going to have points that you agree and disagree on. And certainly I'm nowhere near as articulate or as well educated as he is. That's definitely not the case. I'm not going to try and claim otherwise. Okay, that would be foolish. What I wanted to talk about, however, and this is where I think I'm going to lose a lot of, sort of the attention span of the people listening to this video, particularly if you're new to the channel and you don't really know what it is I do. I'm probably gonna lose you at this point. Now, where Jordan Peterson starts to get a little bit confusing for some people, and where he starts to show signs of, I'm not going to call it being disingenuous because I've got too much respect for him to accuse him of that. But when it comes to these intellectual types, when it comes to people who are of a certain intellect and who have a reputation and have a certain aura about them of somebody who's superior intellectually and likes to debate and likes to talk about philosophy and stuff like that, when it comes to these people, there always is a topic. There always comes to a point where they start to complicate things and start to do things in order to uphold a reputation rather than be direct. Because the thing about Jordan Peterson is he's very direct when it comes to certain topics, when it comes to most things. Like when you ask him about feminism and you ask him about hierarchies and this idea of the patriarchy, and when you ask him about basic human psychology, when it comes to things like this, he's very direct. He'll give you straight answers. He'll speak the truth. He'll speak as honestly and as directly and as clearly and concisely as possible. He will make sure he is as clear as possible in these types of discussions and debates. But when it comes, however, to issues of religion, and when it comes to issues of God, that is when Jordan Peterson starts to show these signs, if you know what I mean. That's when he starts to play some mental gymnastics, so to speak. Now, first of all, like before I go any further here, and again, this is where I'm probably going to lose most of my audience. This is where I'm probably going to alienate most people. I am 100% a believer. Okay, I believe in God. Right, that is very important to me. I am a believer. Okay, I have faith. And like I said, before I go any further, because I know I've alienated most people there, if you're planning to if you're planning to give it the insults, if you're planning to give it the whatever it is you're thinking of, I've probably heard it 100 times over. Whether it's flying spaghetti monster or Jesus freak or Bible basher or science denier or whatever it is you can come up with to kind of insult my worldview, to insult my faith, and insult the the beliefs that I have and my belief in God. Whatever it is you can come up with, I can assure you guys, I've been hearing it my entire adult life. Okay, most if not all of my entire adult life I've been hearing it. So you're gonna have to come better than that. You're gonna have to be very creative with the insults and with the mocking, is all I'm gonna say. So I digress. Let's leave that where it is. It has no effect on me whatsoever, is all I'm trying to say. But the reason I bring that up is because I don't want to confuse anybody here. I don't want to give a inaccurate representation of who I am and what my worldview is. I want to be as transparent and as clear with you people as possible. So moving on from that, and the reason why I bring it all up is because Jordan Peterson, now, I mentioned how he usually gives you a straight answer. he's usually very, very clear with his views and opinions on things. But when it comes to issues of religion, it becomes very confusing to those of you who are not red-pilled. It becomes very confusing to those of you who don't fully grasp the understanding of how these types of things work. Now, the reason I bring that up is because when it comes to religion and when it comes to particularly Christianity, there is a very popular phrase, a very popular saying in the Christian community that is used, and that is the term lukewarm Christian. And I might actually put that in the title. I might put the term lukewarm Christian in the title of this video. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I might actually do that. Lukewarm Christian, what that saying essentially means is that somebody believes in God, right? You have faith in your heart. You truly believe that there is a God. You believe in God. You have faith, but at the same time, you are either not ready or you are not willing to express that faith to the world. You're not willing to admit to people, whether it be your friends, whether it be your colleagues, society as a whole, your viewing audience, if you're a public speaker, you're not willing to be clear and you're not willing to admit to those people what your true intentions are and what your true beliefs are. And the reason for that, it could be any reason whatsoever. I mean, maybe you're trying to uphold a reputation. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're worried about persecution. Maybe you're worried about losing your job or alienating your relationship or your friendships or your social circle or your viewing audience. Maybe you don't want them to know for one reason or another. But either way, whatever the reason is, whatever the motivation behind that, whatever it is you can't really express your beliefs, and whatever it is that you're not ready to express your beliefs, it makes you a lukewarm Christian. That's the term that we use. It's basically a simplification of somebody who believes in God but doesn't want to or isn't ready to admit that they believe in God. Now, how does that relate to Jordan Peterson? Why am I talking about a lukewarm Christian and trying to sort of amalgamate that with talking about Jordan Peterson? Is because when you listen to Jordan Peterson, whenever anybody asks him a question on religion or a question on faith or belief in God or a question on Christianity, a question on the Bible, and more specifically so when they ask him, do you believe in God? You'll hear a lot of people ask Jordan Peterson, do you believe in God? His answers in regards to that, in my opinion, and again, I don't really want to call him disingenuous. Again, I have too much respect for the man to accuse him of being disingenuous. So I don't want to call him that. I don't want to say that. But what I will say, and I choose my words carefully here, what I will say is that he can sometimes be economical with the truth, if you know what I mean. He can be economical with his answers. He'll often give you different answers. And he'll often say things like, I'll give some examples. He'll often say things like, I act as if God exists. That's one he likes to say. Or he'll say, I don't see the harm in believing in a God. Or he'll say, define what you mean by God. Or he'll say, I believe in a potential, a higher power. He'll say that God is a vague term. Could you please go into more detail? And what he'll often do is he'll try and, so to speak, he will try and deflect the question. He'll try and avoid the question, or he'll try and paint it in a certain way where he's trying to overly complicate the issue, rather than saying, yes, I believe in God, or no, I don't believe in God, or I believe in God, but I'm not 100% sure which God, or I have faith that I do believe in God. I mean, look, he could easily just come out and say, yes, I believe in God. And vice versa, he could do the opposite of that, but he won't do that. He won't admit to not believing in God. He won't admit to believing in God. And the reason why he does that, in my personal opinion, and I'm going to try and rationalize it the best way I can and articulate it the best way I can without pissing off people who might, like me, respect Jordan Peterson. I believe the reason he does that is because, for one, he does believe in God. I absolutely think 100% Jordan Peterson is without a doubt a believer. He believes in God. If he didn't believe in God, he would tell you. Believe me on that. Atheists and people who don't believe in God love to tell you. They're not shy on telling you, because that way it would alleviate him from all the stresses and all the restraints of the scientific community trying to paint him out as being somebody who is theistic. You know, it could, because in that sort of community you have a certain reputation. Jordan Peterson has a reputation among psychologists and among doctors and among scientists and among philosophers and among intellectuals in general, and these people who see themselves as a certain class of intellectual. He has a reputation among these people as being a very intelligent and very articulate person. Now, if he were to admit to his belief in God, and like I said, I genuinely believe he does believe in God, as do I, by the way. I believe in God. If he were to admit to that, that would severely damage his reputation in those circles, and I don't think that he wants that. I think that he likes the idea of being viewed by those people as an equal, or as a superior, or as somebody that's in the club, so to speak, somebody who's in that sort of scientific intellectual community. But he doesn't want to admit to his beliefs because he wants to uphold that reputation. At the same time, though, and again, this is where I talk about being a lukewarm Christian. And look, some of you are probably going to say, well, why Christian? You know, why not Muslim? Why not Hindu? Why not one of these other beliefs? Why not sort of put him in that category? And the reason I say that is because, quite simply, he doesn't believe in those things. When you listen to Jordan Peterson talk about God, it's very, very clear. Like, he always references the Bible. He always references the Gospel and the Old Testament and the New Testament. And it's definitely from a Christian perspective, a Judeo-Christian perspective, is definitely what he believes. Okay, when he says the word God, he's talking about the Christian depiction of God. All right, he believes in God. All right, there's no doubt about it. And so that's why I don't confuse those beliefs with other interpretations. I don't confuse his beliefs with other teachings. All right, it's definitely from a Christian perspective. He's definitely a Christian. And where was I? So what I was saying is, he believes in God, but he doesn't want to admit that he believes in God. And the reason is that he's trying to uphold his reputation, as I said. Now, at the same time, while trying to uphold his reputation, at the same time, he's not going to admit that he doesn't believe in God. He's never going to ask. Look, when you ask any atheist, do you believe in God? They'll tell you no. And it's a very straight answer, and they'll give you a justification why. And usually that justification is very believable, and usually that justification is very well articulated. Jordan Peterson, as intelligent as he is, and as well educated as he is, he could easily articulate that. He could easily convince you 100% that he doesn't believe in God, and that would gain him a lot of freedom within that community. That would gain him a lot of respect within that scientific community. But he doesn't do that, does he? Why doesn't he do that? I'll tell you why. Because he does not want to put himself in a position where he is openly denying Christ. He does not want to put himself in a position where he is openly denying God. He does not want to do that because he fears God, just like every single believer out there. Okay, our entire concept, our entire understanding of the very concept of right and wrong comes from our faith and belief in Jesus Christ. Whether you believe it or not, whether you even understand it or not, and I've spoke about this many times on here. The very idea of right and wrong and morality and ethics and doing the right thing and doing good deeds, the very idea of that is inconceivable without the idea of God. Okay, and you can rationalize it any way you want, but if the belief in God did not exist, all right, if Christianity and if this type of culture was never a thing, there would be no law. There would be no right and wrong. Okay, this type of thing would not exist. And that's why I say that Jordan Peterson, even though he stands to gain a lot from denying the existence of God outright, he will not do that. At least not at this point in time, he will not do that. And I expect he will never do that. All right, because he believes in God. All right, he is concerned about his afterlife, and he is concerned about the afterlife of his children, his viewing audience, his friends, his family, and anybody who he's able to connect with in life. And he does not want to condemn anybody to, and I don't even like using the word. I'm not even going to use the word. Because I'm such a strong believer that I don't even want to use that word. But he does not want to condemn anybody to hell. He does not want to condemn anybody to damnation, and neither do I. And that is why the type of footprint I want to leave on this world, and I'm not an articulate person, I'm not the type of person who's able to convince people of anything. I know that by listening to me, look, I'm a red-pilled individual, I'm a realist. I know that by listening to me, I'm not going to convince anybody. By listening to me, nobody's going to convert, nobody's going to pick up and read the Bible based on the things I say. But I want to at least leave a certain footprint on the world where I'm not turning people away from the Bible. I don't want to convince anybody to denounce their faith. If I can just convince one person that there is something behind this, that faith is important, and that our Christian values should be upheld in society. If I can convince one person of that, then I'm happy, because I believe that it's the right thing to do. And again, you can give me all the insults you want, you can call me all the names under the sun for my beliefs, but it will not shake me. It will not shake my faith. And I have faith that Jordan Peterson one day, because he has a massive viewing audience. Okay, this guy has millions of people who watch him on a daily basis. His videos on YouTube get hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions of views. Very little. At very least, they get hundreds of thousands. So this guy has a huge influence and a huge reach, and people listen to him, and people are entertained by him because he's very entertaining and very well articulated. His lectures are very well articulated, and I could only dream of having that type of reach. I could only dream of having that type of influence, and I don't think I'd want that type of influence, if I'm being honest, because it's a big responsibility. I don't envy him. He's in a very difficult situation, but my heart goes out to somebody like him, and my heart goes out to his viewing audience, that you have to understand to take certain things he says with a pinch of salt. And when he tries to sort of overcomplicate things like questions on what does he believe in God, when he tries to complicate those type of questions, that's something that you need to take with a pinch of salt and be very wary of, in my personal opinion. So that's all I really wanted to say with this video. I don't really want this to go on too long, but let me know what you guys think of Jordan Peterson. Do you guys think that he's legit? Do you think that he is as he portrays himself to be, or do you have maybe an alternate perspective on him? I'm interested to get some feedback here, so I don't know when I'll upload this, maybe sometime within the next couple of days. But yeah, let me know what you guys think anyway. Thanks for watching, and God bless each and every one of you. Stay vigilant, because these are hard times, so stay vigilant.